Paul Finebaum has got some words for what he thinks Lincoln Riley should do. Got some thoughts on that when it comes to how we feel about his thoughts. Got some thoughts for how we feel about Lincoln Riley. Got some thoughts for how we feel about USC going forward. Before we get to that, make sure you subscribe. College football every single day of the year right here on this channel, on the On3 YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a minute of what we got going on right here on this show, The Hard Count. Live tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern. Want y'all dialed in. Follow me on Twitter and on Instagram. A great way for us to hear how y'all feel about the content we're putting out, about our takes on things. A great medium to interact on. So follow me there. We appreciate you so much for that. All right, now, Paul Finebaum, let's get right to it. Just went scorched earth on Lincoln Riley after they lost to UCLA. I don't want to put this thought out of context, so I want to get right to it and just read it word for word what his quote was. Paul Finebaum, he said, "I don't know if we've seen a worse coaching job by anyone than Lincoln Riley this year. It's a complete disaster. And quite frankly, he ought to pack up. I don't really see his path moving forward. Blamed everything on Alex Grinch. They haven't been any better. They've been worse. Well, maybe Lincoln, you ought to look in the mirror. Maybe you're just a total fraud as a coach. Maybe you just lived off a couple of Heisman winners." All right, I think that's probably a good spot to stop right there. A lot to unpack with that one. A lot of places to go. I want to start with the sentiment as a whole, saying you ought to pack up. Maybe you're a fraud as a coach. Whether he's implying that Lincoln Riley should quit as the head coach at USC or whether he thinks USC should fire Lincoln Riley, this all feels a little bit like victim of the moment, and we have a ton of respect for Paul Finebaum on this show. I want to make that very clear. One of the best, if not the best, in the industry. That's first. On this thought, though, I think we're off base. I think we're being the victim of the situation that has been this year for USC. Because my issue with this is we're taking one negative data point from Lincoln Riley's career and having it define who he is as a coach and define his situation at USC. Lincoln Riley finished with a record of 7-5 this season. He has had one other season where he's had single-digit wins. That was the COVID season. He went 9-2. They played 11 games. Lincoln Riley having a down year does not define him as a coach, does not define him as the guy at USC. The reality is, if you're thinking there's a better coach out there than Lincoln Riley for USC, I mean, you're picking from a pretty small group, and a lot of those guys already have jobs they're very happy with. He is 73-18, his career record as a head coach. Doesn't sound like total fraud material to me. And then he also said, well, maybe you've kind of just, lived off of a couple of Heisman winners and their success. Baker Mayfield, first of all, was a walk-on. So any success he had, you would have to think in large part some of that came to the guy who was running the show for him and being the guy behind the offense. I mean, there's no question he's had success at the quarterback position. But to say he's lived off of Heisman winners and not give him any credit for the success those guys have had playing quarterback for him, that feels like irresponsible thought to me. Also, Jalen Hurts, he didn't win the Heisman Trophy. And Oklahoma got to the college football playoff. And Jalen Hurts is night and day a better quarterback from his time at Oklahoma and now playing in the NFL than he was at Alabama. A lot of credit to Jalen Hurts. I think Jalen Hurts would give a lot of credit to Lincoln Riley. So again, this thought that somehow he's a fraud as a coach, he should pack it up, feels like we're victim of the moment of a bad season. You can have a bad season. It's a negative data point. There is no way around it. But to just ignore the context of what he's been as a head coach throughout the time of his career, come on now. Little bit knee-jerky for me. Also saying that maybe he should pack up is assuming, again, Lincoln Riley should be fired or he should just leave USC as a whole. My issue with this is we're making the assumption now that Lincoln Riley is the problem at USC. Okay? My overall approach to firing head coaches, when it's time to fire a head coach, is when you have reached the point where the guy that you brought in is not the person that you thought he was, or we've beat our head against the wall with other solutions and it goes back to the head coach being the problem. I don't know that Lincoln Riley is the problem. Last year, we lost one game in the regular season for USC. It was a bad year this year. No way around it. Had issues on the defensive side of the ball. Yet again. Lost a lot of games. Lost more games than you thought USC would ever lose. But again, are we saying Lincoln Riley is responsible for that? Because he's been the common denominator for a lot of success throughout the course of his career. Are we sure that 7-5 season we're just pinning on Lincoln Riley? Or is it a chance that maybe, just maybe, the other side of the football that he doesn't really specialize in had some issues there? Had some issues schematically there from a coordination perspective. He said, they've been worse since Alex Grinch got fired. He was the one they were blaming, and they've been worse since then. we don't know that that's actually like the solution. We don't know that like Alex Grinch not being there is actually going to work or not yet. I don't think we can define what the defensive side of the ball is without Alex Grinch just yet. You don't want to know why? Because we haven't hired a new defensive coordinator for USC. Like, I think that's the thing we got to assess Lincoln Riley by now. Okay, how do we pivot? How do we adapt? All the best coaches in college football, from Saban with what he did offensively to Kirby Smart with the way that he's adjusted since he's been at Georgia. Heck, Ryan Day this season, they've adapted. Lincoln Riley now is in a position where he is going to be forced to adapt. He's already taken the right step in firing his defensive coordinator. Let's see how it plays out. I don't think the book is just out there on Lincoln Riley. So the thought then is we move into the Big Ten if we're USC, more of a line of scrimmage league, just overall a more talented league. There's a thought now, well, JD, what if the same thing happens next year? What if the defense is bad again next year? What if we underachieve again? And we'll probably have another good quarterback. That's a pretty fair assumption to make when you have Lincoln Riley run the show. What if we underachieve defensively yet again? Well, then you'll have a better gauge for it being Lincoln Riley being the issue. Okay, well, it's a risk. Is it a greater risk to fire the best or one of the best offensive minds in the game, the best quarterback whisperer in the game, because you don't like the way the defense looked for one season and roll into the Big Ten with no head coach? Or is it a greater risk to say, let's see if he can hire the right guy for his DC and they can fix some things on that side of the ball? Feels like a pretty clear-cut answer to me. So I understand the frustration. The frustration is not the issue. The solution that we think the frustration should have now, that's the issue. That's the issue I have. Saying Lincoln Riley should pack it up. He's a fraud as a head coach. That's not what the data tells us. That's not what the track record tells us. The track record says that Lincoln Riley is a really good coach. Had a down season. Had a really down season. But the risk in firing Lincoln Riley or him quitting as the head coach at USC, far, far greater risk losing someone like Lincoln Riley and hiring somebody else than maybe just letting him run the show a little bit longer. So I don't know that he's actually even insinuating that he should seriously quit or that they really should move off of Lincoln Riley, but just the overall sentiment that he's somehow a fraud of a coach. I think the data indicates otherwise, and I think USC as a whole right now is frustrated, but long-term, it's just far too early to know whether Lincoln Riley is actually the problem or not. You hate what happened this year. You hate that Caleb Williams didn't achieve what he was capable of, and USC didn't achieve what they were capable of with the Caleb Williams as your quarterback at USC, but let's all calm down. Let's take stock of the situation. Let's circle back this time next year, see where we're at. Make sure you're subscribed. Hey, Twitter, Instagram, at JD Piquel. Get at me there. DM me, tweet at me, whatever. Let me know your thoughts on this situation. Very, very curious to hear. Appreciate y'all. Love y'all. Gonna keep this party rolling. We will see y'all next time. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.